joining us, of course, is a man who, well, I think it's the second time being here with us on The Observer. Let me say Happy New Year, all the best to him and his family, and welcome political leader of the Congress of the People, Mr. Prakash Ramadhar. Pleasant good evening, sir.
Good evening to you, and may I wish you and every member of your family and listening audience the best year ahead against all of the odds. May God's blessings shower us with health, prosperity, kindness, and every wish that we have for ourselves to become a truth in this year.
Thank you so much. And you said, against all odds. And when it comes to politics, there's always going to be some odds, there's going to be some challenges, especially, you've been dealing with people who may say, listen, things were not transparent, it wasn't above board, it went against the rules and the procedures. Bring us up to date. I mean, you are now officially confirmed and installed as the Congress of the People's political leader. What does that mean for those of us who are on the outside looking in, especially in this election season?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to clear up a lot of mischief that has been put by people who are responsible for the condition of the COP. It has been, at the very best, in dormancy for some time. And I've been asked over a long period of time to come back to help restore it. I did, after much encouragement. And when I came back in, the normal protocol would have been, and which was done by Mr. Senate, so I must pick up, bow to him to the extent of his magnanimity, but knowing full well, unfortunately, he didn't have the cooperation necessary to move the party forward. And I decided, look, I'm alive. Others were just holding space and not exercising their responsibility within the party to ensure that the party itself was living up to its constitution. And there was complete failure on that level. So I said, you know what, let me come and try and restore this thing. And I was appointed deputy political leader. Another person who was making a lot of trouble was removed as deputy political leader. Mr. Senate resigned at the normal convention of the National Council, which they have not been able to hold in over 4 years, and it's a requirement to have it every 3 months. I came to help ensure that the programs are operational and that these meetings are held according to our constitution. The person, in a large part, together with others responsible for the failure, is the person who then said, no, the constitution requires, knowing full well that it could not have achieved a quorum for National Council, and therefore put me to that test. Guess what? Within a short period of time, after 4 years, we were able to have a properly quorate National Council on Saturday evening that almost unanimously voted to support my elevation to political leader of the party. So there are stumbling blocks by people whose ambitions are not that of the COP, not that of the country, and only out to make trouble. But we will deal with it. We got even on Saturday a letter from a lawyer, a close associate or relative of the troublemaker, threatening some swift come, because if they do come, and I want to see them in a witness box, so serious questions to be posed. So I'm not afraid. We move forward.
Right.
The Congress is back. We are mobilizing. We are strengthening ourselves and taking our space in the political landscape of Trinidad and Tobago.
That sounds great. My master controls, tell me if you can just speak up a little louder. I don't know if we're getting, but if you can talk up louder, really appreciate that.
Of course. Is this any better? Because, this is as loud as I can get without shouting. So whatever it takes, I'll help.
All right.
That's adequate.
That should be better. Yeah, looking at it, of course, many people have weighed in and said, listen, the party has been around. It has been stagnant for quite some time. And certain moves by individuals quite questionable as far as, are they smelling political blood in the water? Are they now starting to lay claim to it? And just moving forward, just how are you able to deal with this?
First of all, there will be opportunities everywhere. I'm not unaware of that, but my function as the political leader of a party that I loved and cared for with many others, and took it from a position when people thought it would have evaporated in 2007 after the elections, to a tremendous force again, and partnering with our partners years into the partnership, and we were able to have achieved and delivered on our manifesto, if not all, most of what we had hoped for in our manifesto. Having said that, of course we know there are those who want to lay claim to all sorts of things, but I believe in hard work, blood, sweat and tears about who is what and what value we bring to the politics. And we need, I make it abundantly clear up front, the COP cannot run on its own. It needs to do whatever we must in partnership, but it is how we partner and how we collaborate in terms of ensuring that there's mutual respect and a sense of balance. So I use the analogy, and I think it's a fit one, that the COP is not a sticker that you can just place it on something and say that, you know, you are together. No, it has to have depth, it has to have breadth, it has to have weight, it has to have substance. So that if there are negotiations, it must be on a almost level playing field, so that whatever comes out of it, there will be checks and balance on each other as we move forward to restore some level of trust in the political.
Yeah, and if you could expand on that, because I mean, what you're saying here is basically what you said before. You said the priority was to fix the party first before considering whether the party would enter any coalition to contest the upcoming general election. Now, is it a matter of fine-tuning? Is it a matter of setting something that is going to bring about this political attractiveness? What exactly? Because, I mean, you must have political demographics, what your aim would be, what your target would be, what basically you have to offer the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Is all of this being considered before saying, listen, I am going to form or become a part of any alliance or any group moving forward?
The COP must never be seen to be cap in hand. It is too much of an honorable and dignified task to become that. We are not mendicants, we are not beggars. And therefore it is our duty to look after our business, to strengthen ourselves, and to ensure that when we go forward in partnership with others, we bring real value to ensure success wherever we choose to run in collaboration with our partners. I make that clear up front. I do not want it to come as a surprise by anyone to believe I'm saying the COP could run on its own. We've had that experiment repeatedly, and it has failed because the country is not ready yet for that level of a COP winning on its own. Maybe it had that opportunity in 2007, we reached close, but having learned from that, very practical. And I don't want it to be suggested that we are here to damage anybody on the political landscape. We are here to build, to create a magnetism, and we can do it in a short period of time. We must do all that we can, and then negotiate appropriately, and know full well what we have, and therefore the negotiation must reflect that. As I repeat, we are not a sticker. We are not here for decoration to say that we exist and therefore we are entitled. No, I believe I learned from my father and his father before him. It is by the sweat of thy brow man shall eat bread. I want to earn the right to own political space.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Ramadhar. I mean, you have a thriving legal practice. You can basically stay within the realm of things, I don't want to say safe zone, but what has inspired you now to actually come back and take the helm of the party and actually go out there and say, listen, I believe Trinidad and Tobago needs the COP at this time? What was it that sparked that had ignited that for you to say, you know what, I want to be a part of this?
It's a very personal decision, because I've been saying, and I don't forgive me if I get a little bit emotional.
Go ahead.
I love this country more than you could imagine. And my first drop of water, my first breath of air came from this land. And I do not want to leave here. I want to live the rest of my life. I'll cross 60 and therefore everything matters now in terms of mortality. I want my last days to be here and my last drop of water, my last breath of air to be that of Trinidad and Tobago. And I look around and I love children, not just relatives, I mean all children. I love the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And I cannot sit by and allow the demolition of all the things we are grown accustomed to fail in terms of our own personal security, in terms of energy security, food security. The economy is in shambles and a host of other failures. I must participate as best as I can, as humbly as I must, to try and fix this thing. Not just so, as I repeat, for me, not just for this generation, but for the next. Mikey, I do not know if I'm overstating it, but when I say people agree, the trajectory of Trinidad and Tobago at this point in time, maybe 2 or 3 steps away, is that of Haiti. And if we do not grab it now by the scruff of the neck and say enough is enough, all of us, the good, the only division I want is good versus evil, the good and the lawful against the lawless. That's the only division I want in this country, and we must save it now. There is no tomorrow in this, Things are, I couldn't believe the pace at which this country fell from one of the most vibrant economies, one of the best places on the face of the planet, short years ago into one of the worst. And the trajectory is downwards, and I'm not seeing a glimmer of hope on the horizon, and therefore hope shouldn't just come on its own. We have to create that. And I agree with you. It is a terrible responsibility to give up one's practice. Again, I did it in 2000, at the height of my practice. I've regained a whole different niche into the practice. I do mostly civil work now, and championing the rights, medical negligence. The divers issue is one, many that we do to help people. And I've created a bit of a team that may continue in some way with that work while they allow me the privilege to serve my country at a higher level. So it is self-sacrifice, but it is one that is worth it. And I call upon all patriots of this country to appreciate that this is not just about politics. This is not about who winning, It's about the people of Trinidad and Tobago succeeding. If we make the mistake of allowing 9 years of failure to turn into 15, well, then we should have deserved it.
Yeah, you have spoken out, of course, with the crime situation, the SOE. I mean, when you look at much of the legislation that has been implemented over the 9 years, with the intentions, according to those in authority, to better the lives of the citizenry, what's your take on that, especially from a legal perspective?
Listen, I'm happy you raised that. This country has more law than you could imagine, but more lawlessness than you can endure. We don't need more laws, What we need is putting the laws to effect, giving the resources, but more important than the physical resources is leadership and a sense of optimism and commitment that we love this country and we're going to fix it. Put fear into the lawless, the criminals, and I repeat this, it was a big disappointment. As you know, I really didn't criticize the Prime Minister or the PNM in the way that I really should have in the last several years. I said, look, give them a chance. It is tough, whatever. But I realized that none of the authority they hold, they have responsibility for. And when the Prime Minister, instead of standing up all the badgerism that we had been hearing for the years and had to endure, when he showed up this SOE's declaration, say enough is enough, criminals, you're finished, we're coming for you, the state is bigger than any person or any group of people. What did we get instead? A whimpering, I am retiring. No, that was a perfectly wrong time for that. This is when we needed the badger and the strongman kind of approach, right? And the SOE, unfortunately, they did not realize, that is the government, that the country has been in a state of emergency for several years. And the thing, in terms of curfew, the citizens are in curfew for a long while. The one thing that is free now is the criminals to roam through the length and breadth of this country, do what they wish without any true consequence. I'm not playing, listen, we have really incredible police officers, but we have leaders in it, or the leadership of it, that doesn't motivate them. And when a Prime Minister yesterday could suggest that police are afraid and lock up in their police station, that might be true, but why you need to say that? Why don't you deal with that issue and find out why it is they're afraid? Because they don't have real leadership and a sense that we come in after the criminals rather than the criminals can come after us. So that was a wrong message, because he spoke about the respect for the police. You think that speech, that statement created respect for the police? Not at all.
I agree with you. I mean, now when they need to be inspired more than ever, one would think, why would you come and try to bring their morale down to the all-time low? And that's very unfortunate. I have to ask you again, now, how do you see the COP playing as far as being a component of something restoring good governance in Trinidad and Tobago. And I say this in the sense of, people would say things about the PNM and the fact of mismanagement and all these years, but one thing they seem to hold to is that political discipline, that not bringing out that dirty linen in public, whatever it may be. And of course, we've seen the cracks, we've seen the shortcomings, but we've also seen a sense of discipline where everyone falls into place, rank and file. And my question is that if there's an agreement to say, well, the COP needs to fight these seats, this is what's best for you, can you bring this home? Is this something that you will have to say, listen, I want to negotiate, or is it something to say, listen, just bring it on, as long as we're a part of it, and as long as we can restore good governance, we are all set and ready to do it?
Well, it is a combination of both, in terms of, I repeat, that I want to be involved in government. I do not want to be involved in politics of criticism, but one of answers and solutions and the power to implement them. And that is why 2010, as much as people want to criticize it, but when you really analyze it, it was more propaganda than reality. So when this was a weakness, the Prime Minister removing ministers and so, that was a strength. That was a message of the COP. And for those who believe in accountability, if you do wrong or serious allegations against you, you ought not to hold power until your name is cleared. And people saw it as a weakness. That is a strength. What has happened since? All the standards have fallen. So you could do what you want in government, and everybody could criticize and complain, but you remain with the authority and power. So do we want to establish now, moving forward, that higher level of expectation, because we don't have the luxury of failure. The country cannot afford failure moving forward, and failure is not just in economic terms or in the suppression of crime. It's about improving the quality of leadership so that young people could feel proud, want to stay and live and develop this country, and look up to our leaders and say, I want to be like that. Dignified, honorable, trustworthy, straightforward, progressive, productive. These are words that we stop using because we're so deep now in the sense of failure and loss of hope that we stop talking about those things. We're talking about their survival now. Imagine Trinidad and Tobago, we're talking about survival. When we were one of the richest countries on the face of the planet, not just economically, but culturally. Listen, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, you know this. The warmest, kindest people. But now we've been pushed back into our homes, locked away, and even they're not safe. So there's a lack of trust that is emanating, that is literally infusing itself at every level of society. And the young people in particular, when they grow up being afraid, what kind of adults will they become? You don't want to go to the beach or even take a hike in the beautiful mountainside of Trinidad and Tobago because you figure you're going to get killed. You can't live like this. This is not about survival. It's more than just survival. It's about living and enjoying life. That has been sucked out of Trinidad and Tobago. We need to restore that. And whatever it takes, all those who want this for themselves and for their children and future generations, this is that time. If we don't do it now, I can't see us doing it later.
Yeah. Former political leader of the COP, Mr. Winston Dukaran, said this. He said that political opportunities are not circumscribed by process alone. There are other factors at play in a complex democratic change. And we've seen the change. I mean, not just locally, as well as regionally and globally, these changes are made where people feel as though, their belief and what they subscribe to needs to be a priority. Many would say that we have basically outlived our current constitution. It has become obsolete because, again, many of the changes that have taken place have not been considered or part and parcel of the policies that is being laid out by the authorities. When you look at this democratic change, how does one go about, of course, facilitating the request of so many people now who want to be identified in our society as being part and parcel of a productive movement?
If you do not believe you belong, you will not invest yourself in development. It's as simple as that. And it is amazing to know how many people feel dispossessed in the society, that they do not matter, they might attempt to speak, nobody listens. The politics must reflect all segments of society, and at the end make decisions how we as a united country deal with issues. The Constitution, yes, and don't forget for a moment, Mikey, it is the People's Partnership who brought as its first tranche of constitutional change actually into the Parliament. Today, had that succeeded, we would have had fixed election dates, right of recall, and the dreaded, as many have demonized this thing called the runoff. People never even understood it, but those whose voices were loud and empty demonized it. You know today what would have been the country's path? That the small parties in certain constituencies, you had to negotiate with them if you wanted to be sure you get 50%. And if you didn't get it on your own before, in the runoff, the voices that you speak about who would have felt dispossessed would have had an opportunity then. They have no choice but to negotiate with them. So their policies, their plans, their intent could reach into policy of government. And, that is why I had to reflect recently more than ever on the propaganda that had been launched on the COP, had been launched on the partnership, and repeated so strenuously for so long that people started to be divided. Spoke about corruption. There's corruption everywhere in the country at some point or the other. What did we in the partnership do? And one of the reasons the COP stayed in government, because we promised 5 years of delivery. And one of the most significant legislative change was procurement legislation.
Yeah.
To deal with wholesale corruption. That has been watered down and the teeth in a large part taken out. So when they criticize, it's not just about what you say, but what you do. This is what we did. And I could go through the amount of successes of the People's Partnership.
And that's something that never seems to be revisited. I want to thank you this evening for bringing that out. I mean, and basically what you're saying, and we have to ask the question, of course, they say the past doesn't equal the future. Now, moving forward, and of course, bringing about all these plans, is it still going to be a challenge coming up to the propaganda? Because that propaganda, when you look at it, after the dust has settled, none of those things really and truly held weight. I mean, when you talk about the corruption, when you talk about how things were being governed, when all was said and done, it was basically fabricated. It was lies. Moving forward, more experience. You're more conscious of how the game is played. You understand the political battlefield a lot better. You know where the mines are. You know where the grenades are. Moving forward, is it going to be a lot easier? Or do you believe that you can still fall victim to the propaganda?
Well, let me say, one of the worst and strongest things in the world today is bad news and worse expectations. So I am not unaware of the challenges that we face. But thank God for men like you and others in the media who, against the odds, speak the truth, bring people who wouldn't have a voice, and to articulate these things. I don't know when's the last time we've had a discussion about procurement legislation and the People's Partnership and dealing with corruption, right, as one example. But we need to keep repeating the truth, right? And so the propaganda will always be there. And in fact, the world has changed to the extent that it seems to dominate propaganda and falsehoods. But do we just give up? No. We continue to fight and ensure that not just you, but others are inspired by you to speak the truth in the communities, not just on the media, but in the homes. And let it be known, because against all of the criticisms of the corruption, and if we don't chisel that, we will, every time you hear about UNC or partnership, whatever, you hear about, all the bills so and so, but how much money thief. If that is so, we call on the authorities to investigate and prosecute. And we gave the teeth to the authorities to do that. Integrity legislation over the years, right, has not been effectively used. The only time it's been used is against Mr. Pandey and a few others in the opposition, all the time in government, and very little else. So you wonder now, those who have the tools, how has it been used? And at the end of the day, even Tim Gopi, what a magnificent man, charged and prosecuted, paraded through the streets of Palestine in handcuffs. At the end of his case, you know what? The court said, but the offense for which he's charged is not known to law. I just give you an example.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ramadhar is back with us. Thank you. Loud and clear?
Thank you so much.
A lot better. Thank you so much, Your Master Control. Good. So I know we picked up from the point again, looking at all that was said, all that propaganda that took place that 2010 to 2015, which was totally unfair. And I think it really and truly deprived the citizens of the facts of the matter, the work that was being done, things that were accomplished, things that were done to elevate the lives of the citizens. And you're right, today when you hear about the partnership, they seem to want to pin or taint it in some negative way. Moving forward, learning from that, what can we expect?
Well, we have to be a little more vociferous about what we do and ensure greater transparency. Everything that we do, procurement which we brought in must be used and shown that whatever contracts are given. Now, I am not naive to believe that there are not people who motivate themselves to corruption, but we put systems in place to mitigate, if not deal with those things.
Yeah, and you know, all of that, of course.
And transparency, that is crucially important. And more important than that, while we were busy producing, others were producing propaganda. We have to meet that up front and deal with it on a daily basis. We worry the truth. To deal with those false allegations. And if there are serious allegations and real ones, we must expose them ourselves. So, you know, that is the only way I believe in truth. It has an incredible power and people know it inherently. But propaganda, though, unchallenged becomes a reality. No. And I think we were so occupied, and then in my own party, there was that continuous bickering to leave partnership, when we made a sacred promise to deliver in 5 years all that we could. So that distraction didn't allow us to really come head to head with the propaganda and show truth versus lies.
Yeah, it's quite a juggling act. Closing comments, go right ahead.
Trinidad and Tobago, to me and to many, the most beautiful place on the face of this planet that we need to save, but we are destroying on a daily basis. None of our problems really are God-made or natural disasters as such. They are man-made. And if they are man-made, man can solve them. Other societies have come back from worse. El Salvador is the primest example of the highest crime rate in the world, highest murder rate, to the lowest in 4 years. It took a lot. But yes, there is a path to a better Trinidad and Tobago that we all need to work towards and encourage each other with the hope and commitment to sacrifice, yes, in some way, but the sacrifice will be worth it to make Trinidad and Tobago the one that we grew up in. The young people do not even know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So I'm committed to it, and I'm hearing more and more people committed. And once we come out like this, Mikee, and you highlight and many others highlight that the good is far greater than the bad. The numbers of bad people in this country is actually very small, but it's growing because they've allowed it to fester and to blossom. We must put an end to that.
I agree.
That good will always outwit, outbeat, and succeed in the face of negativity and darkness.
Thank you so much for taking time out to being with us here this evening. All the best to you and your entire team, and we'll be checking in with you periodically. Keep up the good work, and let's get it started. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Trinidad and Tobago. We will do it together. Thank you.
Thank you so much.